what's up? I'm Channel Pup Fanboy Supervillain. And it seems today that all you see is quirky teenage Spider-Man streaming on Twitch TV, which leaves me wondering, where are those good old-fashioned Spidey stories? On which I'm done with this bit. I'll elaborate further in the video on this, but there's a new Spidey show on the way. It's proving a bit divisive among Spidey fans. Of course, what piece of Spidey media isn't in the social media age? Is it dead on arrival, or are we just all getting old? All these existential crises and more in today's video. Be sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already and you love Spidey. This is the place to be. And if you want to support me further and get benefits, the link to my Patreon page is in the description below. All support is hugely appreciated. Thank you very much. So right off the bat, I just want to say everything I say in this video is purely subjective today. This is not a review. This is not how I would review the show. I'm all about whether or not something actually works on its own merits, you know? This here is just me giving my completely subjective thoughts on what we've seen of the brand new Spider-Man TV series so far. So with that out of the way, onwards. So Spider-Man Freshman Year was announced all the way back in 2021, which would explore the never-before-seen origins of the MCU Spider-Man. In other words, it was a way to get people to shut up about Uncle Ben. And yeah, this would have tickled a certain curiosity factor, but I think Marvel Studios knew just kind of how restrictive that idea was. If you're making a prequel to MCU Spider-Man, you can't include Vulture, you can't include Mysterio, you cannot include Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Electro, the Lizard, the Sandman, or anyone that they intend to use in future MCU Spider-Man movies. So who are you left with? So behind the scenes, the idea was retooled into an entirely original project, but one that kind of mirrors the MCU in kind of like an alternate history way. Swap Tony Stark out with Norman Osborn, and you kind of go from there. And of course, with that, the show has since been retitled to Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which definitely won't confuse things further, given that said title has been given to Raimi's Spider-Man since Spider-Man No Way Home. It's on the merch, it's on the official Marvel website. That is the title that they're going for Raimi's Spider-Man. So then, yeah, you got Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which is also this Spider-Man here. Now, the early artwork did look pretty promising to me, showcasing an art style that was reminiscent to the 60s Ditko and Lee era of Spider-Man, and that is one of my favorite eras for the character. So maybe what we were getting was kind of like MCU Spider-Man, but through like a 60s-inspired lens or something? Or maybe something that's set in like a no time, kind of like how Batman the Animated Series has kind of a 50s Art Deco vibe to it. So okay, yeah, the idea of a 60s-inspired Spidey show that also draws a few cues from the MCU, creating kind of like an alternate history thing, yeah, that's fine. It allows creative freedom beyond the confines of the original MCU story, so I can roll with that. But there has been a lot of skepticism among fans. Since X-Men 97, Spidey's fans have been wondering why the 90s Spider-Man animated series wasn't given the same treatment as X-Men 97. Demand for this only grew when Spidey would make a cameo in X-Men 97, proving that this version of Spidey is still out there, and still relevant. Then there were also concerns about the animation. 2D or not 2D? That is the question. Or it certainly was when early images of X-Men 97 leaked, and I could certainly understand why that would have had people upset, as 90s X-Men was always in 2D. However, X-Men 97 turned out to be a 2D animated show that was helped along a little using 3D animation just to kind of max out the spectacle and tidy a few things up. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, on the other hand, doesn't really have any obligation to adhere to any particular art style. However, it is taking the 3D approach, but with cell shading to replicate the look of a 60s Spider-Man comic. And as far as I'm concerned, that is all fine by me. While it would be really cool to get the X-Men 97 treatment for Spider-Man, I'm more than game to see what the creators of this show have cooked up with their alternate history take on MCU Spider-Man. It's all fine by me, and as for 3D animation, it depends entirely on how it's executed. As long as it looks good, I could care less if it is 3D or 2D. Obviously, it's always nice to get 2D animation, as 2D animation is a bit of a dying art when it comes to these kinds of projects, but as long as the show looks good, that's what matters the most to me. As long as it doesn't look fuck ugly like Marvel's What If, we're good. Well, we did get a trailer earlier in the year which offers us our best look at the overall vibe for this show, the story it's going to follow, so yeah, let's go ahead and check it out and see what we're in for. Alright, see you on the other side. Right. So, it doesn't look bad. I'll say that much. It certainly looks to be a step up from Ultimate Spider-Man and Marvel Spider-Man 2017, but it definitely shares some ideas with them that are feeling incredibly fatigued at this point. The 60s influence is purely superficial. It's an art style at most. You've got a remix of the 60s theme as well, evoking that kind of nostalgic vibe, which I can go either way on. I've never been that precious about the 60s Spidey theme. I'm always excited for a Spidey show to get a new theme, but yes, whatever. But we are firmly back in the realm of Spidey as a streamer. Hey, pup from the future in the editing stage, in the name of not being disingenuous, it does appear that it is actually the criminals that were doing the streaming here. So to be completely fair, we don't know for definite that this is the live streaming Spider-Man. But it does bother me that one of the things that they are leading this show with is live streaming criminals. I don't know, I want to see Spider-Man fight Doc Ock or something. Not streamers. It might not be that bad. I am going to bring it up a bit later in the video anyway, but like, that is just because that was all pre-recorded. In the editing stage, I did notice that it was indeed the criminals that were live streaming. And he's generally this clumsy, goober, quirky kid, rather than the more angsty teenage Peter of the past. We've got him fighting some D-list villains in his homemade suit before his secret is discovered by Norman Osborn, a guy who works with other heroes such as Captain America, who gives Spider-Man a brand new tech suit, which is clearly the Future Foundation suit, but in this show, it's been recontextualized as the Oscorp suit. So I want to be completely fair, I want to give it the benefit of the doubt. It does look like a solid show, but maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just that this is aimed at younger audiences than me, but I am feeling pretty fatigued of this take on Spider-Man. Don't get me wrong, I've got a lot of love for MCU Spider-Man. While elements of this existed in the comics and source material at the time, it was really Homecoming that kind of ushered in this era of Spider-Man in the mainstream, where he's a bit more goober-coded, less angsty, more tech-based, more of a streamer, less of a loner, etc, etc. And those ideas were cool and fresh back in Spider-Man Homecoming. Now though, it's like you've got this 60s inspired art style and a 60s theme remix, and it looks on the surface like a return to roots, but now we've got quirky goober Peter Parker swinging around as a live streamer Spider-Man, getting yet another tech suit from yet another billionaire, giving us yet another excuse to not have Spidey in the classic red and blue. We are at a point where it feels like another Spidey show with another gimmick. With the 90s series, Spectacular Spider-Man, and even the new animated series to an extent, we were leading with that back-to-basics Spidey mythology without gimmicks or frills. Of course, back then it wasn't back to basics, that was just the default. Nowadays, I swear, it is always this. Here comes quirky old Petey and his gang of friends. They're gonna start a live stream. What new suit is Spidey gonna be wearing this time? Like back when High Top Films was super unhappy with MCU Spider-Man, I kinda just saw it at the time as like, fair, this is a new take, and one that I'm fine with. But now it's always that. He's always teched out. He's always backed by billionaires. He's always this quirky little guy. At the same time, I'm conflicted. You could say the fact that we're starting out with the Future Foundation suit makes this fresh as far as Spidey TV shows go. So I do acknowledge that there's another side of the coin here. Maybe it's just age as well. I'm approaching my 30s now. I'm not a teenager anymore. Maybe I'm struggling to relate to this modern depiction of teenagers in fiction. Kinda rhymes. I have no idea. And God, that's depressing if true. But I think that's the thing. If you asked me what I would want from a Spider-Man TV show, it wouldn't be this. This feels played out to me. It's, I think, in large part why No Way Home had such a drastic change in course, ditching all the tech and superhero affiliations in favor of a fresh, independent Spider-Man. I also think there's an element of teenage Spidey has been done really well in Spectacular Spider-Man, and we've got a lot of Spider-Man movies that cover that ground, so there's just a lot of teenage Spidey material out there to compare this to. But it's like, speaking of age, if you were to ask me what I'd like to see in a Spider-Man cartoon, kid influencer Spidey with his billionaire supporter isn't it. I'd want something more akin to the adventures of Peter B. Parker. And I know, it's kind of that old cliche of Spider-Man fans wanting Spider-Man to be miserable, But I guess I just like to see him come from a lower point in his life and see his life get better in an uplifting story. See him overcome something very personal to him, be it a divorce or a death in the family or otherwise. It doesn't have to end how it does for Peter B. Parker, with him marrying Mary Jane and having a kid, but I'd love to explore the adventures of a Spider-Man who is very much an adult and things have not been a fairy tale for him. And he's dealing with that day by day until things finally start to get better for him through his own actions. But I think that's also by and large because it's a story that I relate to more now than I would, say, a teenage quirky goober in high school. So the short version is, I want Spider-Man to be as miserable as I am, not some social media influence. Wait a minute. No, don't get me wrong, I don't just want Spider-Man to be miserable. Nor do I want this franchise to just be one singular thing. It's that kind of stuff, which is why the Amazing Spider-Man comics are fucking irrelevant these days. But to that same end, I think goofy goober kid Spider-Man has definitely become oversaturated. We're hopefully getting new Spidey films going forward that will give us a more mature Spider-Man, so maybe this is the perfect time for a series that focuses on a younger Spidey. I truly do believe that every generation should have their own version of Spider-Man, and maybe for this younger generation, this is going to be just that. The Amazing Skibbity Spider-Man. And maybe teenagers just are quirky. Maybe that's just how it is. That being said, I still find I relate enough to shows like Spectacular Spider-Man, the new animated series, and all of the movies that feature a teenage Spidey. I was a teenager once, I can get behind it. Maybe it's just how quirky it all is now. Maybe I'm just tired of quirky Parker. I can't help but think the adventures of teenage live streamer Spider-Man would be 10 times more exciting if it were Miles Morales. Like, we've had a dozen Spider-Man TV shows devoted to Peter Parker. Miles Morales hasn't had a TV series devoted to him yet, and I would love to see him take the spotlight for it. Better yet, give me an anime about the adventures of Takuya Yamashiro's Spider-Man. I would love to dig up that old version of the character. Seriously, I think Takuya Yamashiro would blow modern audiences' minds. It would be so freaking epic. The thing is, I was kind of ready to roll with alternate history MCU, but the thing is, I think when I've seen MCU Spider-Man already, maybe it's just a bit been there, done that. From what we're seeing, of course, I do acknowledge that this is a 2-minute trailer for what will inevitably be about 10 30-minute episodes or so, and we're barely scratching the surface here. But if this is what they've chosen to showcase, I'm really trying to get excited about it. But this is just an angle of Spidey storytelling that just feels tired to me now. Oh gee, look, Norman Osborn is forming an alliance with Spider-Man. I wonder how that's going to go. On a positive note though, the animation, honestly, I think looks really good. I personally don't mind things like a lack of civilians in the streets during web-swinging shots. It's a TV budgeted thing. I can understand certain corners being cut. It's the kind of thing where if it can be better, of course, I'd like it to be. I'm not going to completely invalidate that, but I could get past that. It feels kind of like an upgrade from, say, the new animated series in terms of its animation. It could end up being one of the better looking Spidey shows, honestly. Web-swinging shots are suitably kinetic, and again, I love the 60s Ditko-esque art style. At the very least, this is going to be some eye candy. I just wish that it were a bit more embedded in the show's DNA, rather than the 60s inspiration just being purely skin deep. Speaking of other things fans have picked up on, Spidey chucking a brick at a dude's head. Like, I'll be honest, I grew up with superpowered Tobey Maguire Spider-Man super punching the shit out of Mortal Man Doc Ock's head when in battle. I'm kinda used to dudes in these things being incredibly durable. I swear the conversation about, hey, that dude there is definitely dead has only been amplified in the past 10 years. We did not give a shit about this when movies like Batman Begins dropped. In fairness though, it's a valid criticism. You could say it's a lack of attention to detail. For me, it just depends if it makes the action sequence cooler. As long as we don't explicitly say Spider-Man just murdered someone, I'm pretty chill with this. In conclusion, I think this will be fine. I think it'll be a fine show. While the overall quirky tone feels done to death, maybe this is just what kids relate to more these days than the more serious tone of something like Spectacular Spider-Man. Maybe this just isn't aimed at me, but that doesn't matter because there's still plenty of Spider-Man media that does scratch the itch for me. Beyond the Spider-Verse has got to be coming along eventually, right? Right? Hello? Well, what do you guys think? How do you feel about the way the show's shaping up? Are you excited? What do you think of my video? Happy New Year, by the way. Comment below, discuss, and as always, if you've enjoyed this video and you want to support more like it, be sure to hit subscribe, hit the like button, and in the description below is the link to my Patreon page, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get your name in the credits of these videos, ad-free uploads that you can download, and much more, including a special shout-out for the patrons in the $5 and above tiers. We have new patron Seppo the Smith, welcome, thank you so much. Silver, Josh Strider, Big Mum, Grant Allen, Twilord, Coco210, Hey It's Classy, Jay Sevian, Ian, Chohenshin, KB, RT0, Carl X, Hypes, Sad Goku, Dare Denny, SSS06, KO Bennett, Babe, Wake Up Pup finally uploaded. I know it's been a while, I'm sorry. Ken K, Mr. SP, Sirius the Skeptic, Biotin, and Vera Wild. Thank you folks so much for your generosity, and to all of you at home, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Now get out of here.